back in New Jersey, was on island. Yeah, passing through a couple of days ago. Lobby, nice to. I know you were wrong. I didn't see you. And also, Thompson Funkin was on the console for. Dr. Thompson Funkin was on the console for Mr. Lambie. So Lambie, hope you're doing well this evening. Good night to you and the family. We know that you're always there with us at Q95. You're part of the Q95 family. So good evening to you. Let's take the opportunity, as we do always do on the Workers' Voice, to say good evening to each and every one of you listening to us at home and abroad, especially those of you in Kulibistri, Monrachet, and Souls. Good evening to you. Hope you're listening. Mr. Baba, Dong and Kaye, always listening. T, Sakafet, and all the others up in Tapive, Mr. and Mrs. Vidal. Good evening to you. Those of you in Tibo, Mr. and Mrs. Vera, and Mariel Thomas in Tibo, listening to us, and those of you further afield, my sister in Canada, and those of you in New York, St. Martin, St. Thomas, Fimba, how are you doing, my brother? And in New Jersey, Mr. Peter Thomas, how are you doing? Good evening to you and the family. And Augustus Massicot in the UK. I just want to extend sympathies to the family of Shirley Shillingford of River Street resided in Bath Estate. She was the mother of Mr. Glenroy Soso Coffee. So we want to extend sympathies to Soso and his entire family on the passing of his mom. She passed away last week, Friday. We want to send sympathies to you from those of us, the United Workers' Party family, and each and every one of us around the island, further afield, who knows Soso. Does like to extend. Warrior, your good friend was here recently. I know Warrior is really sympathizing with you as well. We do extend sympathies to the family of Mr. Lishos John Baptist Soros. He passed away a couple of days ago. Just want to reach out to him. And our very good friend, he was a very regular caller of the radio talk shows. And I worked with him for some years in the banana industry, Mr. Roberto Maslin, who passed away in St. Martin. Just want to extend sympathies to his entire family on his passing. Sympathies to Mr. Roberto Maslin. And to all those who have lost loved ones, we just want to reach out to you on behalf of the leadership of our party, Dr. Thompson Fontaine, our political leader, our deputy political leader, Mr. Clement Maslin, our president, Mr. Lennox Linton, our deputy president or vice president, Mrs. Francisca Joseph, and the entire family of United Workers' Party. Good evening to each and every one of you who have lost loved one and who are not doing well. Gifford Paul on the others, the former finance minister on the United Workers' Party. He's not doing too well and he's back on island. I just want to extend best wishes to him and his family, Jason, Timothy, and all the others, to Mr. Julius Timothy, who's not doing too well and is back on island. I just want to his entire business employees. I just want to reach out and touch you as well at this time. I'm coming from the United Workers' Party. At this time, Mr. Timothy, does want to continue to pray for you and ensure that you have a speedy and full recovery. So good evening to you. As I said, once again, with the Workers' Voice, I just want to touch. So we always try to touch our friends and family who are not doing too well at this time. I just want to reach out and touch you. But also, we just want to wish those of you who happy birthday. And Mr. Clement Masley, our deputy political leader, today is his birthday. I just want to extend birthday wishes to Mr. Clement Masley, wherever you are. I know that you're enjoying. Maybe we'll bongs about Katai after I leave the show, and we'll maybe just no glasses. I know you just always light beverages you drink. I also drink light beverages as well. So water is good. Water or Coke or something like that. Wine will be good for me. So I hope you're enjoying your birthday, Clemo, and all the very best. And take care and see you soon. Yes, this evening in studios with me, we have from the Roseau North constituency, Mr. Danny Luge is in studios with me. And also, in a big way, I'd like to welcome our political leader who was out of state for a few, some time and is back with us. And you heard him today, but tonight we're going to hear some, he's going to be part of the discussion going forward. But also, we would like him to give us an insight to what transpired with his matter today. He was before the court as well. You know, Mr. Lennox Linton, the continuous wasting time with those bogus charges of incitement. We also have in studios with us our president, Mr. Lennox Hinton. So we have a very good team tonight, and I just want you to join us, participate with us as we continue to work with each other and share information, and that's very important. But before, I just like everybody to introduce themselves, and then I'll go back to Dr. Thompson Fontaine for he and Mr. Lennox Mr. Linton for a few minutes to give us an insight of what transpired around the court before we go into the meat of our discussion. Mr. Luge.
Good evening, Honorable Hector John. It's certainly a pleasure to be in studio tonight. I'm really pleased that I'm sitting with our political leader. Well, often I'm with President Linton, but I want to join you in extending sympathies to Glenroy Coffee. And I don't know all the siblings, but I know Marlene Greenaway. She's a nurse. She's on island also. That's his sister also. So I would like to extend sympathies to the entire home circle, and knowing Glenroy very well, I know his mom did a fantastic job raising a great son, and often he's in studio, but because of the challenges that he had with looking after his mom the last few weeks, he haven't been present in studio. Also, to the family of Roberto Masle, a colleague who worked with us several decades in the banana industry. So to his entire family circle, we extend condolences to him. Several nights he would be calling this very program, a patriot of the highest order. So it's good to be in studio. Rosa North, Rosa South, Rosa Central, wherever you're listening from. If you're in New York, Peter, Francis, David, Joy, wherever you are, welcome to the Workers' Voice. Stay locked. It's going to be a very interesting program tonight.
Okay, we'll go to our president, Mr. Linton.
Good evening, Honorable John. Good evening, Honorable Lugue. Good evening, Honorable Dr. Fontaine, and to the patriots of Dominique at home and abroad. Before I say anything else, all of you gentlemen, right? All of you, all three of you, and everybody else listening to me tonight, you're invited to come and join us in Maryland for the weekend, Mayfest.
Right.
You have
the Mayfest weekend.
You have
just come to Maryland.
I hope you have
a questions. So just come to Maryland.
Bring mangoes with me.
Bring coals to Newcastle. And, I don't know whether the birthday celebration for Mr. Masle is happening tonight at Katai. But just in case it isn't happening there, Mr. Masle, good evening to you. You're welcome to Margot. We'll celebrate you up there during the Mayfest weekend. Good. Now, these days, Hector John, is so difficult to call names of people who have died, because I just find, maybe I'm getting old, but a lot of people are dying. A lot of people I know are dying. And tomorrow, for example, in Margot, we're laying to rest Mrs. Matthew. You all wouldn't know Mrs. Matthew, but you'll know Annie Edwards. So that's the mother of Annie Edwards, who passed recently, and we'll be laying her to rest tomorrow. We condole with the family. And there's another gentleman that comes immediately to mind, Mr. Wills Dorset, a very well-known community man, music man. I remember him playing the violin in church on many occasions and so on. He was really a good community, good, strong community figure, very well respected. And we mourn their passing in a very special way. So, and to all the families who've lost loved ones, we condole, and we are with and congratulate those who have brought new life into the world as well. So, Hector John, tonight we have our political leader with us, so we're looking forward to an intense discussion for the public benefit on where we are right now, because and I want us to remember tonight, this reset story that we were told in 2022, which is why we had the snap election, which was boycotted by 69% of the electorate. And a good question tonight is where have we come since? This is January, February, March, April, and you call December because it's the only part of December. This is 5 months after the election. The question is, how much reset have we succeeded in doing? And what was the gentleman who set up this reset telling us back then, and what is he telling us now?
Mr. Linton, I would the host of the program ask you about the court matter.
No, Dr. Font didn't deal with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Dr. Font.
Yeah.
Dr. Font didn't deal with that.
Yes,
Okay, well, let's get back to we'll go to the Dr. Fontaine. We just want to welcome you back, and you were here in your capacity as the anchor for the for Sports Wrap. So now you're back in the seat right now. We're in the cap of the leader of United Workers Party. Welcome back, Doc.
Yes, it's good to be with you, Spags. Good evening to you, Honorable Hector, Honorable Danny, Honorable Linton, and of course to the many listeners across the beautiful land of ours, Dominica, and across the world that are tuned in tonight. It is a pleasure to be in studio live and direct on the Workers' Voice. Earlier you talked about me being there. I learned something that sports is no longer encouraged from food form in Dominica. And I was flabbergasted. I can't believe our state of governance in Dominica, that our young people are not encouraged into sports. Danny, you played national football. Lennox, Spags, you played national cricket, and
on the 14,
and now our kids and we go overseas and we get dropped 27-0. So that was an interesting discussion. But again, it speaks to the state of governance, and we should not divorce what's going on in sports with our current governance in Dominica. But we'll talk more about that later. But just to say, it's great to be here, and let us invited you to Mayfest. Let me invite us as well. We're having a competing event in Grand Fond. It's our Achievement Day.
Okay. When is
Sure.
So we have to split ourselves up. It's been a great week. Actually, there was a really great event last night in Grand Fond where the people of the village were honored. And, like we have sports persons, I couldn't believe the level of talent we have in Grand Fond. We had, the footballer of the year, Mr. Devin George, footballer of the year. We have Prince. We have about 4 or 5 national players, and both in the men football as well as, the volleyball as well, on the 16 and on the 19, and just a number of persons in culture and in agriculture. It was a really great event. People were honored and given the flowers. It was a really great event, and I really want to encourage and really, really applaud the Achievement Day committee for putting that together and honoring. You could see the joy that people had when they were honored for their whatever role that they're playing within the community, whether it's as the best farmer, the largest producer, the largest small business. It was really very, very good. And it's something I think that should be encouraged across the country, to within the villages, to give people that sense. So that was part of it. And this weekend, tomorrow night actually is a pageant, Miss White City pageant. And then on the Saturday and then on Sunday, the big event where people will be displaying their produce and so on, and different cultural events. So it's a really big event there for the community of Grand Fond. Just wanted to say that and just say how proud I was last night to be from Grand Fond, to see just the level of talent, in all different areas. The people have excelled. Persons who served as teachers for 42 years, and the commitment to the community and so on was really something. So today, and probably I can just talk briefly, Spags, about what happened today. It was my 5th court appearance and my 5th adjournment, and is becoming almost like a joke. And obviously I cannot talk about the case, but the fact that we've had so many adjournments, and another one again today, adjourned to the 26th of July and because, well, I can't talk about the case. I can't even tell you what transpired today, but it was really laughable, but that's where we are. Free Trinidadian lawyers, high-powered Trinidadian lawyers, prosecuting Dominicans. It is just unfathomable. It's unthinkable. You have that situation and the kind of monies, and we are talking about the fact earlier tonight. We talked about, I heard Lennox mention it earlier today as well. The number of young Dominicans were stranded in Venezuela, and yet it is we are frittering away hundreds, if not millions of dollars on high-powered Trinidadians to prosecute Dominicans, innocent Dominicans. So that gives us a sense as to where we are in this country, and it's truly, and everything is tied in. What is going on in the courts of Dominica is tied in with what is going on with our sports people, with our young people, with what's going on with the kind of drubbing that we get overseas when we go. The whole psyche of our people. People not committed to working, and sense of hopelessness that we see in some communities, linked to just very poor economic conditions in the country. They're all linked, and it has a common thread that runs through all of this. And it's an opportunity for us to discuss some of those ideas tonight, some of those things tonight, and to really point the path, point the way, because it does not have to be this way. We are saddled with a government that clearly has lost its way in so many different ways. We see, structures going up all over Dominica, multi-million-dollar businesses going up when the people of Dominica are getting poorer and poorer. You wonder, how can this be? Where, and to me, it's unconscionable. I'm going to use a big word. It's unconscionable that people are rejoicing when government workers, people who have worked all their lives in government, do not have a single business outside of government. They do not. That all they have access to is state funds, and they can build million-dollar buildings. They can build mansions, and even foot soldiers can put up tremendous buildings, and that it is not because they're able to access a loan in the bank. And that, we have to ask ourselves a question in Dominica. We are creative. We have given comfort and solace to that group of people that feel that they can take and take and take and take. And at the end of the day, they shove the poor, hardworking Dominicans into an apartment building that is leaking, that is falling apart over their heads, and people feel that is okay. But that's where we are. And I hope that we can, as we talk about those issues, we can point to a different direction and the way that we as a party would do things differently once we assume the reins of office.
Okay. Just a quick question before we move it, Chief Gear. I just want to get it clear from Mr. Linton. Your matter was adjourned to the same time as well, with Dr. Fontaine?
No, I think there's an interest in joining Dr. Fontaine's case with my case, with the case of Edison James, although the case of Edison James had been adjourned sine die, and then it has come back. So he was supposed to have been summoned to court today. I don't know how that is working, but Thompson Fontaine has been called back to court in July. I'll be going back to court in September. Now, the original date that had been considered for me to come back to court, the adjournment, was the 24th of August. When that date was put to me, my lawyer indicated to the sitting magistrate that he had recused himself from the case last July, 23rd of July, 2022. So what's up with that? I don't know if his memory was successfully jogged at that point, but he came back with a new date. He moved it from the 24th to the 14th of September, which is acceptable to both sides. And he announced that it will not be before him. Okay. So I think the matter with Dr. Fontaine is going to continue before Magistrate Loda. I do not know who is going to handle the matter involving me.
Myself.
All I know is that the lawyers from Trinidad continue to make their money. Okay. And
before you go, let me just add mine as well. The same lawyers as well. They have a lawyer from Trinidad prosecuting my matter and Brian Linton. Right. I've had about 6 adjournments as well. And I have to be back in court on the 29th of August. Brian and myself the same time. No, I think Brian is somewhere in July. 29th of August. 29th, yes, of August. I was planning to be out of set at that time. Several times, things you have to do, you have to be changing because you're not matter to be over with. And every time you come to court, it's the same thing. So I have to be back in court for maybe the 7th time before Magistrate Loader on the 29th of August 2023.
Now, this matter has been going on for 5 years,
Yeah.
over 5 years. In my case, I've been in and out of court for the last 5 years. And we've gone nowhere, except that under Magistrate Revere, back in 2018, somewhere around there, 2018, yes, the preliminary inquiry begun, and a few witnesses were actually took the stand, including Melissa Skerritt, who had a lot of interesting things to say on the stand. But at that point, the matter was adjourned, and then Revere left the bench, and we had to start over again on the new magistrate. The new magistrate that started over recused herself, so we had to find a new magistrate, and then came Loda, and then Loda recused himself, and now we don't know who's going to come. In the meantime, time is running.
Yeah.
Now, time is running does not prevent the Trinidad attorneys from making their money,
No.
but it is inconveniencing me significantly.
Yep.
Now, I was not interested in a situation where this case was dismissed on a technicality. I wanted the court to determine. I wanted judgment to be done in the sense that the court ruled that I had no involvement at all in any incitement because there is no evidence of any incitement that I was connected to in any way, shape, or form. And I wanted the court to find that as a fact. I still do. But now, with the frustration of the last 5 years, I'm wondering whether it would not be good to push for this case to be dismissed for want of prosecution.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. Now, you're talking to a man who the Labour Party connived with outside agents to bring mercenaries, foreign mercenaries, to my home to plant false evidence of high crimes and misdemeanors. I reported it to the police with all of the security footage from my security camera at home. And the police have refused to do anything about it. But they have me in court for incitement. Bogus charge. No incitement, But I'm in court for incitement over the past 5 years. When the same police that are persecuting me, using highly paid lawyers from Trinidad, cannot do anything about foreign mercenaries coming to my home and planting false evidence of high crimes and misdemeanors to have me placed in jail. They can do nothing about Reginald Ostry calling for me to disappear. They can do nothing about the other people who are making threats on social media on my life. They are totally not interested. They can do nothing about Lennox Lawrence, talking about who should be dealt with, like Obama deals with Al-Qaeda in the United Workers' Party, whether they hide in Salisbury, whether they hide in La Plaine.
Or in Marigold.
Absolutely nothing. Danny Luge was in my vehicle. We were in a vehicle together in Mount Daniel, in the constituency that Danny was the duly elected representative for. And police yanked him out of the vehicle. He was interfering with nobody. He was crawling with nobody. He was fighting with nobody. He was in the vehicle observing an incident that occurred outside the home, the official residence, which is paid for by taxpayers of the Prime Minister of Dominica. And they yanked him out of the vehicle and kidnapped him. Danny is waiting for his day in court for how many years now? Up till now, nothing has happened, but they have us in court for incitement. And people ask, well, what is the United Workers' Party going to do about all this persecution?
Now we're talking
what
about
I'd like is some
2019,
suggestions.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a first day in court,
Wow.
In y'all's case, you'll have been there seven
Yeah.
times. Now that I am taking them to court, I can have a first hearing.
Incredible.
Okay.
Yes. You're listening to the Workers' Voice. We're just speaking about the court matters that we
And the weight of injustice.
yeah, the bogus incitement charges, and we're wasting our time going for the court, and nothing is being done. Just adjournments upon adjournments. We were just discussing this tonight. But we are shifting gears now and we'll move to Mr. Luge. We'll begin the discussion, open batting on our discussion for tonight. Mr. Luge.
Before I go to my intro, I think all that we are seeing here is symptoms of a failed state. I mean, if your court is failing you to that extent, all four of us sitting in the studio, we are before the courts. For what? You know, and, you know, years you're talking about from 2019, 2021, 2023, 4 years ago, and I can have my first day in court. Okay, here we go. We shift gear now. Prime Minister Skerrit announced a reset with his self-centered 2022 snap election, which caught his colleague palace coup planners with their pants down. Legal luminary Sir Dennis Byron was also caught with his rope down. Meantime, in his hand, and that of Skerrit's, was the first draft of the proposed election reform legislation for Dominica. Since that vexatious 2022 sham general election, the political temperature is at boiling point on Island, and Skerrit is looking for a cave to hide from the red-hot political lava flow. How about the presidency, he confides and says to Melissa? After all, Charlo will be gone by October. Is it October, Mr. Linton?
Yes, 1st October.
By October. And so despite whispers of a medical doctor filling the presidential appointment, Skerrit is desperately searching for immunity from the prospects of prosecution. And so, as part 2 of the reset unfolds, with patriots keenly aware of his cunning shenanigans, the call grows louder by the day for the 2019 pre-election reforms promised by the serial deceiver-in-chief. The promise of an April Fool's sitting of Parliament to deal with election reform legislation has come and gone. Another lie from the PM. Cornered as a rat, Skerrit gives up the prized position of finance minister to a medical doctor whom he believes will follow the Skerrit hymn sheet and script, come hell or high water. And so although, as Skerrit openly admits in his own words in a press conference that this portfolio handed to Dr. Mark is, quote, above his pay grade, unquote. However, Dr. Mark's loyalty to Skerrit is unshakable. So what's the plan? Soon you may see phase 2 of the reset unfolding, where Skerrit will resign as Prime Minister, whereupon he fully expects Dr. McIntyre to appoint him President in the vacancy created by the ending of the Charles Savre vexatious reign. With the usual no consultation with the leader of the opposition, as required by Dominica's constitution when selecting our president, it is business as usual for the train crash to hell. Good riddance to the Ayatollah, as far as the popular polls reflect across all political lines. And so the secret plan is to forcibly install a 20-year prime minister as the new president. The question is for Dominica and Dominicans, will you take it? How can a washed-up serial constitution breaker, after almost 2 decades of stealing elections, as confirmed by the apex court in our region, after all his crimes against his citizens, how can he even contemplate trying to hide in the office of president, where he imagines that he will be immune from criminal prosecution? Tonight, we have an esteemed panel of president and political leader of the United Workers' Party to break it down and unravel the devious plan of a dictator on the run. It's gonna be a riveting affair this evening on The Workers' Voice, so stay locked.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luge, for that introduction, and we'll go straight to Doc.
Yes, Spags, when you think about it, and when you think about the some of the issues that are pressing today, we are approaching the end of April. We were promised that there would be electoral reform legislation by April. In fact, by Easter. Easter has come and gone. April will be gone in a couple of days, and there is no talk, no hint of electoral reform legislation. Yet we hear about all other bits of legislation going for parliament. Well, the more critical thing for Dominica and for governance and for democracy is, in fact, electoral reform. And there is nothing that should champion this. Every effort should be made because at the very basis of our democracy is the ability for the populace to be able to exercise their right in a manner that is free, in a manner that is fair, in a manner that is credible. That's at the heart of our democracy. This has been denied us as a people for far too long. And we continue to look to that very important electoral reform. And the question is, where has it gone to? Why is it that we do not have parliament meeting in April to discuss this all important electoral reform? Because you cannot be asking people to obey those laws. You can't be passing laws about, child support and other things, and you want people to obey those laws. Yet the main law, the law which gives you that ability to impose those laws on the people, you are flaunting it. It makes no sense. So we have to take a reset on that. We have to continue as a people to press for electoral reform, and that's what we within the United Workers' Party has prioritized, and it should be a priority for every single Dominican. Every single Dominican should be concerned about electoral reform, because at the heart of this electoral reform is the ability that when a government begins to make laws to govern the people, that the people feel that, yes, they can go by those laws, they can obey those laws, that they will not be thrown in jail willy-nilly. Their freedoms will not be taken away from them. Today, when I was in the court, I was contemplating. I spent the entire day in the court. I got there at 9 o'clock. I left at after 4. And I was thinking of how it is an entire day of mine have been wasted in a process that is going on, that obviously it is politically motivated because it came out of a protest action that we did in 2017. And yet my freedom for that day was taken away. I am on bail, which can be revoked at any moment. So that is where we are. And the question is, how do we as Dominicans react to this? How do we position ourselves to say enough is enough? And that is why Sparks, as a responsible party, we are calling on the people of Dominica. We are calling on our supporters to rally around us. They've been calling for leadership on this issue. We want to provide that leadership. We are providing that leadership. We will be having a series of discussions across Dominica to educate the Dominican public on just why it is electoral reforms are critical, why it is that they should care about electoral reforms. But more importantly, we are looking to May 31st, where we're going to be having a major rally in Roseau to really call upon the powers that be to do the right thing. And we hope the people of Dominica, both locally and internationally, who have been calling, who've been asking for some type of action, will support us in this effort, will support us in our effort on the 31st of May to really send a very clear message, a message that cannot be misinterpreted, that we will not take no for an answer, that we will not rest, we will not stop until and unless we have electoral reform. And that continues to be our mantra. But we want the people of Dominica to join us in that fight. We cannot do it alone. We need your help. We need your support. And we're calling upon you. We're calling upon not only United Workers' Party supporters. We're calling upon independents. We're calling upon those who support the Labour Party, our friends in the Labour Party. We're calling upon you because, after all, this fight is a fight for the heart and soul of our democracy. It's about our ability to have a government that we ourselves put there, not a government that is forced upon us. Because we've seen the results of a government that is forced upon us. At the beginning, I talked about normal persons. I passed by one of the party supporters whom I was shocked. I was like, this guy has all his life, he's been working with government. As far as I know, he has no business. He has no other ways that those could afford this. And there's no, based on my own valuation, I'm not a professional valuer, but by looking at the house, you know that this is not a loan, and the question is, you have persons boasting about being millionaires, individuals who just yesterday were talking about being fooled once and twice, now boasting about being millionaires and having all of this wealth and so on. And it is really obscene, but that is what it comes down to when you have a government that is forced down your throat. And that's the reason why we have to fight this fight. We cannot relent. We should not relent. We have to fight this fight of electoral reform, because ultimately, that is what is going to give us that freedom. That's what's going to make this country better. That is what's going to make our young people once again want to play sports, feel that desire to serve and to be a part of Dominica. We have a culture now in Dominica where our young people are looking to run out of Dominica. We want people to be able to contribute their lives to Dominica. We want people who, after serving all of their lives in Dominica, feel that they've done something. We need to get back to this. We need to keep this electoral reform focus, and we need to demand from the Prime Minister that he stick to his promise. Okay, he already promised, and that's the reason why when I was asked about it, whether or not we would have electoral reform by August, I said, until I see it, I will not believe it. For the very simple reason, the Prime Minister has not been truthful with the Dominican public. He promised in 2019, within 100 days, we would have it. We are now 100 days many times over, and we are yet to see electoral reform. We are yet to see that very guidance or guardian of our democracy, which is to be the ability to be able to vote for the person of your choice, and to be sure that when you vote for the person of your choice, you get the government that you voted for.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Thompson Fontaine. May 31st, 2023, electoral reform rally in Roseau. Put that on your calendar. Those of you at home on the board, spread the word. May 31st, 2023, electoral reform rally, in Roseau. Electoral reform rally in Roseau. Mr. Linton, you heard Dr. Fontaine, you heard Mr. Luge. What are your takeaways in terms of electoral reform? And you have spoken about it for years. We have to remind Dominicans that United Workers' Party started the process in 2005. Where we are right now in terms of the stalling, the dragging, the orchestrated actions or deviation or distractions, the inactions of some people, or deliberate inactions of some people. Where are we? What are we doing about it?
All around the world, people fight for the right to live lives of dignity, freedom, and peace. They fight for that. And this is our fight in Dominica as well.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things about our democracy is the ability, the exercise of the right of the people to choose their government. It is not any individual person's responsibility to decide who government will be. Government in this democracy ought to be decided by the majority votes of conscience of the people. And there must be a process that ensures that that happens. Not a process in which anything goes, not a process in which votes can be bought or people can manipulate their way through illegalities and irregularities to rig the system so that results come back in their favor all the time, which is our reality in Dominica. So right now, as we are here and we talk about reform, the reform is essential to return to the people the right to choose their government, because right now government is being chosen by those who have hijacked the process, the electoral process, and are using it corruptly for their personal benefit. When we talk about reforms, therefore, we talk about removing what the Caribbean Court of Justice told us are taints against the electoral process, taints of the process, the poisons that prevent it from delivering free and fair elections as the backbone of our democracy. So we have come a long way. We have come a long way from 2008 when reforms, basic reforms like cleaning the voters list and issuing ID cards for voting were referred to as madness and chanted down as impediments to the re-election legacy of Roosevelt Garrett. These reforms, this madness that was going on at the commission, he was told, will interfere with your re-election legacy. And from 2008, they ensured that Dominica would get no reform. Dominica would have no ID cards for voting. Dominica would have no clean electors list. And we have pushed hard and we have advocated through the years for that to change. And we came to the point in 2019 where we contested an election perhaps we ought not to have contested, but we were hoping against all odds that the people would have seen sense in getting rid of an administration, of a party that had been so abusive of the people's right to choose their own government. So when we came to the sham election of 2022, after the CCJ told us there should not be another election in Dominica until these taints to the process have been removed, we came to the sham election where we were told by the head of the Labour Party that it was necessary because Dominica needed a reset.
Yeah.
Now, I want to make it clear tonight, we now know on the evidence of the last 5 months, this reset had nothing to do with Dominica. This reset was all about one man, the head of the Labour Party. And you have seen how it has played out, because let us examine a few elements of that reset in the last 5 months. First of all, the cabinet, the reset cabinet. It is supposed to go for youth, new energy levels, capability. What you have a number of the chosen ones of Mr. Skerritt from the previous administration holding on, and those who lost their parliamentary positions and are no longer ministers are retained at ministerial salaries in advisory roles, as consultants, as special envoys, and so on, burdening the public purse with unnecessary, inefficient expenditure, while they are threatening to send home public servants, while they're threatening to reduce wages and tell the people that is not what they're doing. Dr. Fontaine is here. I want to put the question to him, because he's an IMF man. He will give Article 4 reports and consultations in many countries in the world. When the IMF says that the public sector wage bill has to be reduced, Mr. Fontaine, Dr. Fontaine, do you know of any other way that the public sector wage bill can be reduced outside of sending home public officers or reducing the pay of public officers, or a combination of both, as Matt Peltier put to the finance minister?
You're absolutely correct. That's the only way. That's the only way it's done. It is called downsizing. It is called, and fancy terms are used like improving efficiency or making it more efficient or so, more nimble.
That's essentially what it means.
That's it. It happened in Barbados a few years ago, where several public servants were let go.
Another question for Dr. Fontaine. In the reset, right? Because this has happened in the last 5 months. The government is talking about proposals for increasing the revenue. And this is non-CBI revenue. They specifically mentioned that in the IMF report. Once you say non-CBI revenue, we're talking taxes, right? And essentially, they have gone to the income tax allowances. And it is there, they say, we have to examine the allowances on personal income tax, and we have to see how we can recoup revenues that have been lost from the highway levy that was just gotten rid of. We have to look at the water rates. We have to look at rolling back the reduction of VAT on the electricity surcharge or the electricity bill at the end. All that does mean, confirm again for me, Dr. Thompson, because you're the economist here, we're going to have higher water bills, we're going to have higher bills for electricity, and if the IMF has its way, we're going to pay more income tax. Yes or no?
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct, Leonard.
So the burden in the reset, the burden on the poor struggling people is increasing, right? While that is happening,
So what you're saying, austerity measures are coming.
Austerity.
yeah, harshness, some harshness is coming for us.
And it happened before, you know, so don't think it's far fetched. You remember it was in 2003, just before the death of
Pierre, 2003.
of Pierre Charles. It was a levy. They deducted, they knocked off a certain portion of the salary of public
Yeah,
servants.
it's about a 3% levy.
Yeah.
At the top,
It's happened before.
Yeah,
it was called a stabilization levy.
right, civilization levy.
I've always argued that stabilization levy was taken from the people of Dominica and ought to have been refunded to them when things got better.
Right.
And things did in fact get better, but the people never got back their 3% that was taken from them as a sacrifice to help the struggling economy.
But
good.
Vincent Skerritt was taking back the 3% every month in brown paper bags. That is a fact.
Okay. All right.
From Pierre Charles.
That's a new piece of information. I wasn't aware of that. But on this matter to do with the stabilization of the economy and so on, this is an economy that they tell you is doing wonderfully well. When you listen to them talk about the economy, which cannot employ as many Dominicans as the government of the economy of St. Lucia is able to employ St. Lucians, the economy of Antigua is able to employ Antiguans, St. Kitts and Nevis, and so on. We are at the back of the line in the OECS and CARICOM in terms of our ability to employ our own. But in the reset, we learned that over $200 million of Dominican money is going to foreigners working in Dominica. $200 million is significantly higher than the entire public sector wage bill, which the government wants to reduce.
No.
The government wants to reduce the public sector wage bill, but the government is boasting at the same time that over $200 million is leaving the country every year through Western Union and MoneyGram via foreigners employed in the construction and agriculture sectors. They're making more money than all the teachers, all the nurses, all the police officers, all the public servants right around Dominica, the permanent secretaries, the assistant secretaries, all of the people in the magistracy, all of the people in the judicial services, all of them combined. These foreign workers in construction and agriculture are making more money from the Dominica economy than the entire public service that the government wants to reduce in the dynamic Dominica economy that is doing wonderfully well. That is the reset. That is where we are in the reset 5 months later. The reset is telling us as well, you're building an international airport. A patriot comes up and says, listen, that process that you're using is illegal. You're supposed to have an environmental impact assessment study before the planning department and so on. The individual is taken to the ground with criticism, castigation, politician, all sorts of things, only to find out that she was 100% correct. $54 million by the end of the financial year 2024-2025. All they have done so far is they're paid for land, they built some homes, they built a soil lab, and they're digging holes in the ground to test the soil. They need to build 676 boreholes. They have 624. They have 476 still to build after having done only 148 in an entire year. Before that exercise is complete, they cannot have any drawings. They cannot have any designs for the airport on a design and build. But they know the airport is going to cost them 1.3 billion. They know as well that the developer on foreign soil with no involvement of Dominica has hired a contractor who has been paid his mobilization fee, not from the developer's account overseas in which he's putting the passport money that he makes from selling Dominican passports to build the airport, but from our treasury in Dominica.
70 million.
More than 70 million comes from our end. What came from their end, we don't know. Dr. Fontaine, help us to make it make sense, because this airport, we were told, is going to be built on this famous front-loading arrangement that the government has with Anthony Hayden, where he puts the money forward and then he repays himself from the Citizenship by Investment Program. Remember, people of Dominica, we have argued that there's a significant amount of money belonging to the people of Dominica that is outside there under the control of Skerritt, Hayden, and others that has not come into the treasury. We have counted $4.2 billion in respect to the 4-year period, 2016 to 2020. They have been unable to refute it up till now. That is why we have argued we have more than enough money already to pay for the international airport, even if it's going to cost $1.3 billion. And therefore, there is no need for any front loading of money from anywhere. We have a history with this MMC gentleman and Skerritt on these very front-loading arrangements, the first of which we heard was with respect to the Pitted Savan relocation to Bellevue after the floods of 2015. Mrs. Skerritt actually came to the nation and said, Anthony Hayden came to them and promised to front-load money for relocation of the Pitted Savan residents
2016
in Bellevue, right? And had to put out his money to pay for the land and to develop the land because we had no money at the time. It was totally and absolutely untrue, because at the beginning of that particular financial year, we had over $100 million from Citizenship by Investment in the bank. And at the end of the financial year, we also had more than $100 million in the bank. The story that we didn't have money to pay the couple millions that were necessary to pay for the land was an absolute lie. But that is what Mrs. Skerritt used to introduce the value of Anthony Hayden to Dominica with the projects that he would subsequently be giving him. He has now ended up with the biggest single infrastructure project in the history of Dominica, an international airport in which he has absolutely no prior experience. He has built houses in apartment complexes for the people of Dominica. And there are structural challenges and issues right now. There are waste disposal issues that are forcing people to normalize themselves to accept the stench of feces and so on a daily basis. That's their reality. And the Prime Minister, the reset Prime Minister, tells us that is because the people cannot flush their toilets properly, or they don't know how to use the modern sewage disposal system that was given to them. I mean, help me make that make sense. That's the reset we're talking about.
Let us take a short break. Just to remind people that you listen to the Workers' Voice here on Q95. In studios with me is Mr. Danny Luge from the Rosenhof, Dr. Thompson Fountain from the Grand Fork constituency, and also Mr. Lennox Linton from the Marigot constituency. Don't forget our usual raffle sales at the front of the Privy Cinema Mall tomorrow from 8 a.m. Join us there. We'll meet Kent and Bernie and all the others. Onika and all the others will be there joining us in terms of the raffle. Don't forget to share the live on FM radio on Facebook. Share the live. Share the live. Get involved in the discussion. Very important discussion going on here in studios at Q95. Good evening to Delilah Larrock, who celebrated her 87th birthday over the weekend. Happy birthday to you again, Delilah Larrock of Kulibi Street.
Good evening, lady. God bless you all the time. More health, more strength. And I didn't realize it was this weekend gone. So pass for the cake and all of that, you know what I'm saying?
And also good evening to Teresa Pond in Buffett State. Mr. Luge, you ended the discussion as we continue on electoral reform. You have been there from 2009 when we were in Parliament. When we stayed out of Parliament, you became in as a senator. The issues surrounding the elections around that time, 2009, let's say 2005 when it started, 2009, 2014, 2000 and the volume, yeah. You also had 2014, 2019. Mr. Lugo, you have been there in all of it. And also when we stayed away in 2022, that's why we are out of Parliament right now. What is your take in terms of the delays we are seeing? You heard Mr. Linton contribution on it, Mr. Dr. Thompson Fountain will go to him as well. But let us focus on the situation we are faced with in terms of getting these guys to address that issue.
I would like to do a little detour because there are young people listening this evening.
Yeah.
And they would be asking the question, what would the United Workers' Party do differently? The kind of monies that Mr. Linton and Dr. Thompson Fountain explained that we brought in, or we should have earned from the sales of 27,000 passports, Mr. Linton?
23,794.
Right. What we should have brought into our coffers was $5.4 million.
Billion.
$5.4 billion. Only 1.2 saw our treasury. What would we do with that? Last week, and I think the week before, we talk about the water industry. You know, there's a lot of water deficient countries all around us, Antigua, Barbados, Virgin Islands. You know how much money and how much Dominicans we could be employing by a serious water industry. Think a little bit a while. As I said, third time I'm repeating that on a workers program. The same infrastructure that is set up to bring in gasoline, tankers coming into Dominica, tanks at different points. The same infrastructure could have been easily set up in these water deficient countries by, let's say, about 3 tankers, right? One going north of Dominica, one going south of Dominica, shipping out water that we have in abundance. You have the bulk water. In those countries, you could also have water bottling plants where you could add value to the products. That single industry could employ every young Dominican. Then you heard Dr. Thompson Fountain and Mr. Linton talk about the oils industry, the marijuana industry, where we could have derivatives and other products, oils and perfumes and so on from marijuana. Antigua has gone their merry way with that industry. Send Kitts has gone and developed it. And we have some jokers in government. All they're concentrating on is lining up their pockets. So we have the ideas. We have the brain power. We have Dominicans sitting in, accomplished and willing to come back and work with us, to develop industries. You have also like the mini hydros,
Right.
Every building, every government building in Dominica should have solar panels on them. We just hearing those things. The United Workers' Party, what we are saying to young people, we're not just criticizing what is going on, because you feel in the pain. The fact of the matter is you're unemployed, or if you're employed, your salary is unable, because for about 20 years, we haven't seen an increase of salaries in Dominica. So clearly people are feeling the pinch, and prices, as we heard from the IMF recommendations, going to strangle us. And it's only a United Workers' Party government that can make a difference.
But that's all. Add quickly to what you're saying, Danny. Just quickly, just think of it. Windsor Park Stadium, just to have solar panel on all the stands at Windsor Park Stadium. You know the amount of energy you can send back to the ministry to government buildings around Roseau, and how much money going to save.
Yeah.
And these are the things, initiatives that United Workers' Party always bring out. People say no, they're not hearing we talking about anything. What are we going to do? Our plans? I joined the United Workers' Party in 2009. I mean, on every occasion, every Thursday we had that program, we hear us talking about our plans, what we can do, what we're going to do. We're giving up viable alternatives. We go to Parliament. We're doing the same thing. And you hear people saying we're not hearing what you're going to do. And that's it. And you hear it from our people. And it troubles me because we have been doing that over and over and over. Our problem right now is to move that road, that's still in the road. Go wash like in Shimela, come on locality way. And May 31st.
And wash.
Yeah. May 31st, 2000 and put that on your calendar. Yeah. Put that on your calendar. May 31st, 2023. Electoral reform rally downtown Roseau. Dr. Fountain, you were going to say something when Mr. Logie was making intervention.
Yeah, you know, I was listening to Danny, and he talked about the public servants not getting an increase in many, many years. And I was just doing a quick calculation there, and I was figuring that somebody who earned $1,500, say about 10 years ago, that this $1,500 is now worth about $1,000, just roughly $1,000. And that's the reason why you find when you go with your same salary to the supermarket, you get less. Before you come out with 3 bags of groceries, and you come up with probably a bag and a half, if you're lucky. And there's a very simple reason for that. The value of whatever you own without the increase is continuously being whittled down. It's coming less and less and less.
They call it a new name.
So,
shrinkflation or some name they call it. I saw it somewhere on I saw it somewhere in the news. Dr. Fountain,
but it's very real. It means you have less. You're getting the same amount of money, yes, but your ability to spend is reduced significantly by inflation. So if you just take an average of 3% inflation for the past 10 years, that's 40% in 10 years that the prices have gone up. I'm not even compounding it. That's just individually. You're talking about a reduction. So your $1,500 is really worth $1,000. So you're in fact getting a reduction every year. It's like you're getting less money every year. The government is taking its share from you every year. And that is the reality that we have in Dominica. How can you, as a government that has made so much money from the sale of passports, not give your public servants a salary increase? How can you not ensure that at least the equivalence of the price increase is removed every year? You know, I remember the first time I talked about this citizenship by investment program and the amount of money the government was making was when I was in St. Kitts in 2012. And I saw the amount of money that St. Kitts was making even then. St. Kitts was recording over $400,000 EC dollars into $400 million into their budget. And at the time we were recording about 60 million. And I did the comparison. I said, but there is just no way. That makes no sense that St. Kitts could be so far ahead of us. Because at that time, theirs was more expensive than ours. Ours was very attractive then. And I just could not imagine. And I remember writing about it and saying, no, all right, don't. And remember at that time, they were not even giving us the numbers. After a lot of sustained pressure by the United Workers' Party, that is when they began to publish the numbers in the Gazette. And it's from those numbers, I saw one of the comments tonight on our Facebook page. A person is saying, well, no way you have those numbers of people. But yes, they've been forced to publish the numbers. So we have the numbers. So we know the numbers of persons who have obtained passports because it has been published in the Gazette. So we're not making this 23,000 figure
actually, it is no longer published in the Gazette. The last publication in the Gazette was in March of 2019, which was in respect of a 5-month period, August to December of 2018. It was published there by the Financial Secretary, and that is the publication that showed us 3,961 persons had received citizenship during the 5-month period. We then said if you had 3,961 in 5 months, the figure for the entire 12-month period would be more in the region of 9,000. persons,
Right.
right? Which would mean a revenue number of 1.2 billion, not the 221 million that you said you received. That is where the trouble began. And it was pointed out in Parliament. That is when we got to find out later on that Mr. Skerritt had this housing option through Anthony Hayden. And he was telling us if it was not for the housing and so on, and he did do it that way, the budget would be 2.2 billion, not 1 billion. So we knew from there that something was wrong. But since then, Thompson, this is very important, the government Ministry of Finance has not published in the Gazette any information to do with persons who have received citizenship of Dominica.
And where they're legally obligated to do so.
This
So
is
that's
4
another
years- this is 4
example of
years
the
now.
flagrant disregard
years.
for the laws of Dominica.
Gentlemen, let's take a shot. But before we go to the break, and because we're going to take some calls, I just want to say, I know I heard that term already. Shrinkflation is the reduction in the size of a product in response to rising products costs or market competition. I know I saw that somewhere. So what you're saying is they're keeping the price, but they're making the thing small. For example, a massive bread, instead of bread to 150, leave it at 125, but make the bread a bit smaller. So just to help the
Shrinkflation.
Shrinkflation, they call it. Yes. Good evening again in the Workers' Voice. We're going to open the lines 4493095, 4493096, 4493097, 305 432 9624, 305 432 9624. You can also WhatsApp at 265 4334, 265 4334. And those of you on Facebook, Q95 Radio, Q95 FM Radio on Facebook, you can make your comments in the comment section, and we will respond to some of them as we go forward.
Yeah, I just want to say very quickly, Spags, that those NEP workers who are making $500 and who were making that over the past 5 years, that's not worth about $350, roughly $350. So that's what they're actually taking home. They're not taking home $500,
Right.
about $350. So that is very important for people to understand, that you're in a situation where you have not been given any kind of increase in your wages.
The NEP emerged, and you have to remember that, at a time when the United Workers' Party was talking about creating 5,000 new jobs in the economy. Okay. The response of the government was to say, okay, well, we will spend some of the state funds we have on providing employment for people, so we will employ them to clean the side of the roads and so on. That function of cleaning the sides of the road was performed for many years on the successive previous governments by the Public Works Department, employing gangs around the country. There's nothing new about that. In addition to that, you have some persons working in certain areas of the public service and some persons working in areas of the private sector who are paid under the National Employment Program. That is hanging around because in this economy, sustainable jobs are not being created. But Dr. Fontaine will tell you, and he will explain, that we have enough resources from the Citizenship by Investment Program to energize the growth engines of the economy: agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, the services sector, the energy sector,
Health.
the cultural industries,
Health.
to make sure that more employment is generated in the economy. How did St. Kitts end up employing more of its people than we are able to employ? Very simple. They did a better job than us under this administration of putting the growth engines of the economy to work. I'll give you the example. 2004, St. Kitts has less cruise passengers visiting St. Kitts than Dominica has. Dominica was over 300,000. St. Kitts was 240,000. 2004 is the year in which Roosevelt Skerritt took over the Ministry of Finance. And for the years, the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, and for years under Roosevelt Skerritt as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Dominica has stagnated. The cruise product of Dominica has stagnated at or below 300,000. The St. Kitts product has grown to beyond 1 million passengers a year. You know what the employment implication of that is? You know what the significant foreign exchange earning implication of that is? So where you waste time, where you do nothing with the resources that you have in a productive way for the benefit of people, but all you're thinking of is what you can get for yourself to build your mansions and so on, the country is going to go nowhere.
Yes, 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 305-432-9624. You can also send us a WhatsApp message, 265
So we are now talking about...
Good evening, welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Very educational program, as always. Florida with love is listening.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Hello, Florida with love.
Okay, she moved on already. Yes, we did the discussion, Mr. Linton. You made some points about the economy where we are, and Dr. Fontaine as a trained economist. How do we see young people, the young people in the 20s and 30s surviving in Dominica right now? How do you see them? Because they're moving, they're living also by.
But why should they not leave?
But even the Haitians are living right now. They're living in droves. The Haitians that came in here through this Labour Party, some of them stayed in there with the 400 US they were paying. They're leaving Dominica in droves.
Chinese stores are closing now. You don't understand what's going on in this country. And everything that seems to be going somewhere has some element of passport funding involved in it. That's all we have.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
I say praises, thanks, blessings, and glory to all those who have sacrificed their personal safety and security trying to elevate mankind to humanity. Gentlemen, blessings to you all.
Good evening, blessings. Tyrone.
Is there an alien in the house? It's already Luis and them program,
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome home, my brethren, and
Thanks.
everything can just, fall in place by hard work. God blessings. Gentlemen, I want to give thanks for the effort. Sometimes I jump on your back because when the frustration takes me, I just have to say something to ease the frustration. I don't have no frustration, it's the frustration. Pierre Charles made a fatal mistake to his own detriment by having Skerrit go to Barbados and meet with the Chinese premier in the secret deals. And soon after, there was a clique of them, Tony Astafancy, that killed Pierre Charles. When he was stretching out his hands for help, they were biting it and stabbing him at the back in the same time. So what's to that effect, gentlemen?
True. What's to that effect, yes.
He said he have no doubt he was driven to his grave, as he tells Simeon, Albert, and I. You know what that was happening inside there. Dominicans are repeating that same fatal mistake by watching a man squander the resources of the state, disrespect them, chew pool, go to hell, bullshit, no law, no constitution, and the man just keep disrespect. And Dominicans are there, they're wondering if they're sleeping and they may be dreaming. But no, this is not a dream. It is a nightmare. And we need to wake up. If not, gentle people of this blessed land, that man is going to, maybe we're halfway there, sold Dominica on us, and we're wondering. I went to St. Kitts, and the amount of land I see, that president, look a foreigner there, look a foreigner there, look foreigners. Foreigners buying up St. Kitts just now, asking for locals, and locals now, they become broke, and then they're selling. That is what that will be happening, migrating, selling, and take the money and migrate. I am just saying what is happening in Dominica. It's deliberate. Skerrit is not going to empower the people because they will be independent of action, independent of thoughts. So you cannot tell them where to vote. You cannot tell them they cannot play Q95. in those apartments where they put them. I heard that you cannot put your radio on Q95 in those apartments. You better have some how they call the headpiece, the earpiece, and put in your ear to listen to Q95, you know. That's a dictatorship. So now he's giving the police more power under the disguise of violence against women. And he's just creeping in and take all our rights from us. So the young men and young women in closing have to understand what we are up against. This man haven't got your interest at heart. He give you marijuana to smoke and he bring in foreigners to work. Why didn't he create an industry? Mr. Linton and them come up with the initiative talking about he said that they say Linton come out of us is smelling marijuana. These idiots just took to the gutter and trying to smear everybody with some level of intelligence and some level of, creativity and innovation. So I am just calling on the Astafans and the Nassif. What is left of the Astafans? I know Tony is busy and preoccupied trying to punch a McIntyre. But I am saying what the rest of the Astafans and the Nassif, I pleading with all you think all you are, beyond the onslaught, or you will be exempted. Things are going to get nasty in Dominica because people will not roll over and play dead. So stay there. Don't bother about all the investment, or you can fly out anytime, transfer your money, wire your money, and blah, blah, blah. If all you love Dominica, boss, one of you better stand up and save Dominica. Help to save Dominica. Thank you.
Thank you very much for intervention. Let me just read a quick. Good evening to those of you from Campbell listening to us. Good evening, gentlemen. Shrinkflation is on everything, starting on toilet paper, paper towels. The sheets are more narrow and the rolls are shorter. So people are telling you shrinkflation is a wrong base. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Hunter. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I guess gone but not forgotten. I need to express my sincere sympathies with the family of a stalwart Roberto Masley, who I know since 1970, working in the banana industry, DBG and DBMC and DBMC. He was a very hard-working man, grew bananas and so on. He was married, he had some children, had 4 children with his wife. In fact, his wife died some time ago, about 4 or 5 years before him. And his son died too. He died in St. Martin with his children. And also, we're saddened about the entire thing. His political life, I think he is some close family. Or I think Clem Nash might be either his nephew or some close relative. I am not certain. It's 2 brothers showing us. He was a member of the Labour Party, Leblanc Labour Party, and Patrick John Labour Party. But after U.W.P came through, and we had our manager, Mr. Edison James. He felt that Mr. Edison James was doing the right thing. And he became a member of the United Workers' Party. He was the main and strong voice of the U.W.P in Portsmouth. Right? His views, critical views of the present Labour Party was very sound and constructive and well articulated in his deliberation. He was a strong shooter and not afraid to say what he wants. As I said already, may he rest in peace, and may the family at least have our sympathy to the man. He was my friend, he was a good chap to us. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Hunter. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, and we extend sympathies to his family early on. I'm happy that you called him Mr. Hunter because we worked together. He was the manager. I think he was the supervisor of the blend in boxing plant at the time. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Good evening, Sprags. Good evening, Sprags. What number I batting tonight? 1 man down, number 4 you put me tonight.
1 man down, and tonight you're batting on not 2020, is 10-10. You batting tonight.
Okay, so I know you don't want me to score a century tonight, so I'll score 25 runs.
All right. Everybody good?
Dr. Fountain, good night.
Good night, sir. How you doing?
All right, I'm Salisbury People champion.
Yes.
Good night, Honorable.
Nice, sir.
Yeah, and Danny Luke. But you know, what I'm hearing now for the past week is what the United Workers' Party going to do about it. I hear some people talking about mobilization, which is a good idea. But I want to tell Dominican people tonight, if you are open-minded and you are looking towards the future for your children and your children's children, you have to let the media mobilize you. You cannot depend on people. You have to help yourself. Because I find the amount of, for example, 4.2 billion dollars is enough to mobilize me. It's too much to mobilize me. When you have an airport building and Dominica people is not in the equation, the people that signing the contract are not Dominicans. Your prime minister telling you he going to give the same one out of the 4.2 billion dollars another 1.3 billion to build the airport, and he responsible of paying everything. And he's himself going back in the same breath and taking 70 million and give it to whoever. I mean, what more mobilization you need? When you have millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars living Dominica people cannot get a job. What more mobilization you need? When public servants cannot get a raise for how many 100 years? What more mobilization they need? If you tell me, okay, Q95, U.W.P coming on Q95 and they're talking and maybe all Dominicans, I say, okay, all right. So it looks like we'll have to go in the cribbits and the corners of Dominica and spread it. But Dominica people say they're sleeping, but I know they're not sleeping. They just bazoodi because they know what's going on. They can feel it. You understand? And they have to stop waiting for people to do for them and do for yourself. When you come out in millions, no, we haven't got millions, in thousands, then the United Workers' Party know what to do. You understand? They get to help you, they will be there. But people have to help themselves by coming out. Mass demonstration, that is the only way. This man already hijacked the electoral process. He hijacked the justice system. Tonight we're talking about sports, education. No sports in the education system. They're not spending money on sports. Huh? Young little children just getting big and fat because they don't exercise. Fellas afraid to go, Solvik gang afraid to go Colio gang because the sports will break all. They're not spending money on sports. They're not spending money on marketing. You hear Danny talk about the tankers. 2 tankers to sell our water. Roosevelt Skerrit had 11 tankers in a sanction busting system, which is illegal under international law, to ship Iranian oil to China. 11 tankers. If Roosevelt Skerrit had like oil, you couldn't have 1 tanker to ship water or 2 tankers. What mobilization? I mean, every day listening to, let me big up Marvin tonight because Marvin does hit it on the net all the time. People have to do something. You cannot wait for Roosevelt Skerrit to do nothing for you. He's trying to hide right now with all that money that missing, all them billions of dollars he cannot give accounted for. All them, when he build 1 apartment, he say give you apartment. How many mansion he built for himself? The same mansion he have one charging $64,000 a month. How much is a nurse getting? What's a nurse salary? What's a teacher's salary? What kind of mobilization these people waiting for? Spags, I just scored 100 runs tonight, and I tell it's 25, so I'm gone, man.
Thank you, my brother. Say good evening to everyone.
Salisbury people champion. Greetings, my brother. Enough respect because every time it's like Lennox Linton is the problem. Lennox Linton. If I hear Lennox Linton and Thompson, they make one more time, It will just drive me insane. Thank you.
Good evening too. Thank you. Your cousin mother died. So. Yes, Mr. Shillingford, I know you related to So on his passing of his mom. Yeah, what? Yeah, Shillingford, right?
Yeah, and I didn't know that I hear Norman, which is her so mother's brother,
Oh, Norman Shillingford.
was
Okay.
on the radio in New York. Good night, Norman. And he was talking about CK, and CK is my uncle, and I heard him saying CK is. And I didn't know so is my real family for true, you know. Although I don't know them, but I want to send out my condolences to them. You know, it's always a tough thing to bury your loved one. And we have a John Charles in Salisbury that died too. I didn't know. 2 nights back, you mentioned.
Licious, John Baptiste.
Licious, John Baptiste.
Yeah.
Yeah, them is my people. I just want to send out my condolences to Skeno and Vern, Andra, Kendra, and Lisa. All of them, the whole crew. I can't, right now, I'm so pissed off, I can't even think straight.
All right.
Anyway, I'm listening. My brothers, and hold tight, hold the struggle. Salisbury people champion, hold the faith. Hold the faith, because time and time will reveal what it's supposed, the truth. It will be revealed. Because all that money, Dominica is not broke. Dominica has too much money. But one man have it, believe he is Dominica. All Dominica money, his own.
All right.
Even his friend by them. After one said he was supposed to get $1 million when he played Lennox didn't talk. He would get the million, but as Lennox talk, he gets 500,000. I mean, it's a sick thing happening in Dominica. And Dominica people that lie down taking it like, I don't know what happened to Dominica, man. Come on, man.
All right, my brother, stay safe, man. Say hi to your mom.
Yeah, but you know, people ask the question, they keep asking it over and over again, how do we reunite with this body?
Yeah.
So I want to invite Dr. Fontaine. Give the people of Dominica an idea. You are the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. The country has $4.2 billion overseas from sale of its citizenships. I would think for somebody like you, it's a no-brainer how the economy turns around.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
everything is a resource issue.
Absolutely, the country would be nice. I mean,
Exactly.
you know,
Like a paradise.
yeah, and that's the part I think that is more hurtful to me. The fact that, at the end of the day, with all of that resource, the people end up getting scraps. That's what is given to the public, rather than building some sustainable type of industry that could sustain us. Then I talked about the water industry earlier. Agriculture, agro processing. I mean, how difficult is that? How difficult is that? So that instead of our young people planting flowers by the roadside, they could do that, as a pastime. But instead, they could go to a factory in the morning and produce something.
Let me ask you this. Remember in 2014, we sat down and we put a plan together for creating 5,000 jobs.
Absolutely. Yes,
right?
yes.
You can see that 5,000 jobs and more with the 4
million. Oh man, that would be a breeze. That would be a dream.
God,
Good, sustainable paying jobs.
But
monies that would.
But Doc, another thing that we have, you have when banana, the district banana industry in January 2015, that was the last time we exported bananas to the UK. You have all the abandoned lands there. Now you have St. Lucia is way ahead in terms of exporting to the UK, because we have never lost the market. We had our quota on the UK market. St. Lucia and Dominican Republic is doing that. We can get back into the into bananas and get our young people. And maybe we'll not go how we were in the 90s, but we can get some young people back into bananas and doing the agriculture. Another thing that is going for us as well. The UK left the EU. So the traditional ACP countries, African, Caribbean, Pacific countries, can negotiate with the UK and go back selling to them, because most of these countries were colonies of Britain.
Yes.
And these are the type of initiatives that the United Workers' Party bring to the table. We can get our young people back into active employment, but not active, but just sustainable employment. Within 6 to 9 months or 11, according to where you are, to produce. If you from planting stage, if you let's say you're on the Castlebury stretch or Lapland or the Les Warrington area, like Calibishi, you have no, you don't have Wesley anymore. We can plant bananas right there, and within 6.5 months to 7 months, you have production you're in production already.
It's amazing that you mentioned that. Yesterday I was thinking of that because I went back in Grand Farm, went back to where we used to cultivate many years ago. Everything is bush. And then I came across suddenly this banana tree in the middle of nowhere that had grown on its own. And 12 hands, this huge, this massive, bunch of bananas that was just there growing wild because no fertilizers, nothing. It's just over time, it just grew and so on. And I'm saying, well, look at the kind of bananas that we can still make. Look at the kind of money that we can still make from bananas. I was thinking, just yesterday I was thinking about it. And those things you could use these monies from the sale of the passports to help boost, get the inputs that reduce prices, for example. Imagine we had a major hurricane and no serious tree crop replanting process.
No, because Dr. Thompson,
how does that happen?
I want to add to that. I just want to tell you my experience. My father planted about 7 acres of tree crops in 1971, he told us. Oranges and grapefruit. Over the years, you had citrus greening and tristasia, old age destroyed those plants and the hurricanes. We are trying to get about 200 plants after Maria to just the replanting, just to replant those things, and we cannot get, what's his name? Corbett Vidal have been advocating that for the longest while. We have no replanting program after the hurricanes. But the tree crops that they did at the Gardens and Londonderry and elsewhere within the government system, they were taken by ministers, by the president, by the prime minister, by the speaker of the house, and the farmers, bona fide farmers. I know a lady from Lapland that prepared her land for grapefruit plants, and she never got the plants. The plants ended up in Clifton on the farm of the president, where the farmers, the bona fide farmers like Whitnell, you'll have all the tree crops, more or less, what's the name, Cato Ferrara. On the West Coast, you have a lot of citrus, and we cannot get planting materials just to replant, just to replace. Burton Vidal, my brother-in-law, trying to get plants, a few plants, just to replant what my father planted in 1971, I can get replacement.
Shameful. And that is something that you could import those plants with these monies as well from the thing and make it available to the farmers.
But some farmers are willing to purchase because the extension officer is telling them that plants will be ready in the next couple of weeks. And when they go there for the plants, a caveat on the plants already, saying where they're going to, And the farmers, bona fide farmers who prepared the land to get these plants, they cannot get the plants.
But I reflect carefully on this harp on what will the United Workers' Party do, because I think that information is out there in the public, and we have a responsibility to keep telling people or sharing with people what our vision for the country is. That vision that we have for the country in terms of good governance and making sure that people are able to live lives of dignity, peace, and freedom, happiness, good health, and so on in their country is never going to materialize if we are not able to get into government. If the ruling party continues to succeed in rigging elections in Dominica, there will be no change of government, and the people will be deprived of their right to change government, to put who they want inside there. And the time has come when the people should be saying enough. We have had enough of this. We have had enough of this Labour Party doing exactly as it wants with our resources while we are suffering. We have had enough of the Labour Party tricking and deceiving us into participating in our own oppression and applauding them as they oppress us. The Prime Minister stands up and said, I have health insurance. I can fly my children out if anything happens to them. What about you? The you he's referring to, the people of Dominica who employ him, you know. Those who have employed him have no insurance, but he has, and he throws it in their face. What about you? I can go where I want. The healthcare services in the reset, when you hear the minister talk about it, it is like utopia. It could not be better, but it is not good enough for them. When they or their family members are unwell, they take the first plane overseas. But what is in Dominica that they're responsible for is perfect for the people of Dominica. And somebody was making the observation in the recent press conference, well, we're saying we have all this equipment, this new thing at the hospital and so on, and less people have to go overseas. But there's no evidence that less people are going overseas. As a matter of fact, maybe the same number, if more are continuing to go overseas for the care and attention they need. The people of Dominica must have had enough by now. So when we call attention forward now to the 31st of March.
Of May.
31st of May. That is an occasion for all of the people who believe they are either unemployed or underemployed in Dominica because the government's focus is on employing foreigners to work in Dominica at the rate of over $200 million a year. If foreigners can be making $200 million a year while you are unemployed and starving in Dominica, the 31st is a day for you to register your frustration. Your children cannot get opportunities to go overseas to study, or when they're overseas studying, they're told to shake their pampalam for the rest of the money they need for the scholarship. That's the time for you. You're worried about your public service salary not growing, and you're hearing stories about there'll be reclassification and reform and so on, but at the same time, the IMF is telling them, you know, the wage bill has to reduce. All those insecurities that you feel is reason for you to be present with the rest of your people from across Dominica on the 31st in that assembly of Dominicans from across Dominica that we are planning for, because the country belongs to the people, not to any one man or group of individuals. And so it cannot be that in the last year, we have seen Mr. Skerrit busy about his own agenda of turning the Labour Party into his plaything and of having Dominica like his colony of fools that he can do exactly what he wants with. He told Dominicans, listen, I have 2.5 more years. I'm not going in this prime minister thing beyond 2025, April, which is when we should have had an election, the next election. But he said no. He wants the snap election so he can reset. So he wants 5 more years. It is not Dominica he's thinking about. He's thinking about himself. Because in the back of his head, his eyes are on the presidency of Dominica. He wants to go there to hide under the immunity of president. He's tired of being prime minister. He wants to go and hide in the immunity of president for 5 years, at least, and then to work the rest out as he goes along. But he has to do it now, because this term of the presidency is ending in October of 2023. So when he comes to December to have a snap election, it is all those things he has in mind, that when the president changes, he is the one that should be going in there. And Dominicans need to keep their eyes on this, because a man cannot be so abusive of you and you sit back allowing him to just continue to do exactly what he wants while other people are cheering him on.
Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
So when December come and he's not the president, what will you say?
Let Mr. Linton continue.
Was that?
Yeah.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Mr. John.
Good evening.
Mr. John, you talk the truth. The president take the plants and he bring them to Clifton. And Clifton is rock. And they didn't grow. Greedy according to Sonson Gabon. He take it and he bring it to Clifton on their land to plant. That presidency, that is what he did. Greedy.
Thank you very much, caller.
You know, but also, even then, there should be enough plants to go around.
because they didn't
You
do
know,
enough.
because I remember when there was the tree planting after the Freedom Party.
That was EDF.
in 1986.
Canadian
I
people.
remember that. There were enough plants. You know, you source the plants. You make it available as a matter of policy that there are enough plants to replant after major storms. So
But-
we shouldn't be fighting over 2 free plants. You
Everything
know,
for them is
it's
political,
just-
Danny.
We are on the 24th year of a Labour Party government and 20th year of Prime Minister as Prime Minister Skerrit.
Yeah.
The vendors, the Rosa vendors have been waiting for Vendors Arcade for that long. Melissa Skerrit promised that she's going to make Roseau the envy of the Caribbean.
State of the art.
Look, just take a look at what's happening at Bayfront before Vendors. Other Caribbean islands have upgraded, and yet Vendors have their arcade. We should have a whole village so that when tourists come in, they can just look at themselves in that village, get all the things to buy. That would be the point where the buses would pick them up, take them to their tour, and bring them back to that village where you have the Vendors Arcade.
But
For so long, our vendors have been treated with disrespect. You know, you can imagine what their condition is with that hot sun on that Bayfront.
on the top, let me just answer.
Other countries close by us, the Antiguas, the St. Kitts,
Heritage
the
King,
St. Lucias, and so on.
Heritage
They've
King
had
has-
those for 15 to 20 years. So we are 15 to 20 years behind our neighbors on these fundamentals of economic growth, on these fundamentals of growth engine activity in the economy that will drive higher levels of employment, that will allow more sustainable jobs to be created and so on. We are 15 to 20 years behind our neighbors. And all of a sudden, right now, everything they talk about is like the best thing to happen to Dominica. We're talking about the international airport. We're not sure we're going to get an international airport. I want it. I want to see it happen. But the way they're going about it, we're not sure. I know a lot of money is going to be spent. They have already committed to spend over $500 million from our treasury and $1.3 billion from outside. How they going to do the accounting for it, I don't know. Maybe Dr. Fountain can help us with that. By the way, Dr. Fountain, help us here. You're building an international airport, right? You choose a developer that has no prior experience in airport development, and all his development is about is using your passports, selling it to make the money to pay for the airport. But he's going to be paying for it by himself, and then you have the country has no liability, the country has no guarantees to give. It all belongs to the developer, and then at the end of the day, we'll have an international airport. In the meantime, we're spending over $500 million from our treasury. Work that out for me, please, because I don't get it.
Yeah, because when you talk about, for example, he talked about no sovereign guarantees, which basically means that you're not going to guarantee if there is any debt incurred and so on, you're not going to back it up. But the fact of the matter is, you're doing more than that. You're actually putting government money into it, But also that model is really confusing to me. How does he get the money otherwise? He sells passport. That's what he has been doing for the housing project. But hasn't he sold enough already? I mean, this gentleman built a 95 million building in the middle of Dubai after getting that sweetheart deal with the government. I'm not saying that's our money, but I'm saying that he built
it after
he had access to our money. $95 billion skyscraper building.
7 stories.
Yeah.
Jumeirah.
Right there in the middle of Dubai. So I say next time I go to Dubai, I want to go and visit that piece of Dominica in Dubai. That's ours, So it is very strange and also modern. And also, how do you talk about a price tag when you don't know anything about size or width or design or quantities and so on? Usually you get the amount of $1 billion after the quantity survey, right? You know how much brick you're going to need, how much mortar, how much,
Exactly.
length of steel, you do it, and then you price everything and how much you're going to pay for
Excavation, everything.
labor hours and all the rest. And how can you just throw out a number and not even know, But it's interesting that the number that he free fraud is well within the $4.2 billion, right?
No, the other thing is that we're going back to 2014 when we did our plan for the 5,000 jobs, right? Because what we were looking at is specific activities within sectors of the economy that could generate a certain number of jobs, right? That we know we could do. Okay. Now we have the 4.2 billion sitting out there. We have the medicinal marijuana industry worldwide that we wanted to get into. That is why I went to Denver, Colorado, and some other places in the United States, looking at the industry as it was growing and seeing where we could fit. They came back criticizing me and saying all sorts of things. And Mrs. Kerrit saying categorically that there was no economic benefit for Dominica to derive from the medicinal marijuana industry. So that he went to Parliament, and all he succeeded in doing was to pass legislation for people to be able to smoke a spliff and to have a tree or two planted in their backyard. Other islands around us, again, are moving ahead, right? Antigua is moving ahead. They have less land than us, but they're moving ahead. So is Barbados. So is St. Kitts. So is St. Vincent. And on this again, as we have found ourselves 50 to 20 years behind the cruise industry product of our neighboring islands, we're going to find ourselves 20 years behind the others in this medical marijuana industry as well. Right?
Yeah.
And it is, as you recall, Dr. Fontaine, the numbers made sense to us, and we were confident in the numbers because of the analysis that we did.
Yeah, we did, exactly. And these are going to be 5,000 solid jobs, because there is jobs and there is nothing jobs, because if somebody who is working in a factory, say, and they're producing a good for export, you cannot compare this job with somebody who's planting flowers by the roadside. One job, you're self-sustaining, because now you're able to sell that good you're producing in the factory, bring in foreign exchange that you can then use to do other things. If you're simply paying somebody to plant flowers, the flowers die. They have to come back and replant those same flowers a couple of weeks later. But nothing has been added to the economy necessarily. It's not the same. The 5,000 jobs that we promised people of Dominica would have been so different from that NEP program.
Yes, gentlemen, we are a very good discussion, but we are getting to the end of our discussion for tonight. You're listening to the Workers' Voice. In studios with me is Mr. Danny Luge from the Rosenhof constituency, Dr. Thompson Fountain, our political leader from the Grand Funk constituency, and also Mr. Lennox Linton, our president from the Marigot constituency. Don't forget to join us tomorrow in front of the Prevost Cinema. We'll continue to sell tickets for our 8 a.m. as usual. You have Bernie Ryan will be there, and Kent Joseph, Onika Moulon, and the crew. Edincourt Seneval will be there as well. Danny Luge, Ezekiel Basil, and all the crew. Dr. Tom Fountain will pass through, and all the others join us here in front of the Prevost Cinema tomorrow morning. Don't forget May 31st. Put that down on the calendar. May 31st, 2023. Electoral Reform Rally, Roseau. Electoral Reform Rally, May 31st, 2023. Gentlemen, just to add to something you all said earlier on, I was listening when Danny made the point about the cruise village. And I see Canefield Airport taking a nice cruise village. Shutting on Canefield Airport is not beneficial to us. Put a helipad there and lock it down, just how you have Heritage Key in Antigua and Point Seraphine in St. Lucia. In 1989, I played Youth Cricket for Dominica. That was part of our tour to Point Seraphine, where the cruise ship were coming in. Norbert Phillip was our manager at the time, and brought us there. And interestingly, my brother came down to Dominica, Yusfield John came down to Dominica on a cruise on Friday. And that was his biggest concern. Up to now, he called me a couple of days ago, and he's back in New York, and he was pissed off. They did the Caribbean too, and the worst port, the worst entry was Dominica. He told me, I've never seen that.
For the most beautiful island.
For the most beautiful island. He said he was so excited coming to Dominica. And he told me on the cruise had some Dominicans, and there were some laborites as well. And the discussion got heated on the cruise ship when they were discussing politics and what is going on in Dominica. And he said, man, even Tobago has a better port of entry than Dominica and all the other islands. He said Tobago because Tobago was a smaller island, have a better port of entry than Dominica. We're talking about tourism. And Dominica has the most places to go for tourists to come in and enjoy their time. And do not have a cruise village, just like I said, Point Seraphin in St. Lucia, Heritage King in Antigua and the other islands. And the port of entry is the most disappointing for the, how you call it, Melissa was going to call it, the envy of the Caribbean. I just wanted to add that in because I went to Point Seraphin myself at in 1989 as a kid.
Well, we're probably envious of the rest of the Caribbean in terms of their airport
and the seaport.
And the seaports, their cruise facilities. Yeah. But the rest of the Caribbean is envious of us in terms of the residence we have for a prime minister. Think about it.
Okay,
gentlemen, time to wind up.
My closing comments will be, was a pleasure listening to the comments coming via the radio, also sitting with our political leader. We really truly welcome him back live in studio, and he invited us to Monjan, Grand Fort.
Grand Fort, Achievement Day.
Yeah. You know, a vendor is sharing with me or with us tonight. Quote, first time Dominica had so many Barbadians on cruise. All our money that moved over there with the medical schools. So she said that the last ship was loaded with Bajans.
It was a Caribbean too.
So you can see other Caribbean islands, they have the ability to take their cruise. Barbados that took over Ross, they can come on cruise now. When last a group of Dominicans went on cruise? So you see, these things are really, the poor decisions that we make, the poor governance that we have, even affecting our ability to travel. I remember from 1978, I started flying around the Caribbean. Trinidad was my little holiday spot, Trinidad, Tobago, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, all those islands there. Now it's so difficult for young people to travel.
Very much.
So that these things are real. Here it is, a vendor is saying that Bajans made up a good part of the last ship that visited Dominica. And what about us?
Yes.
We can do better than that.
Yeah, Danny, on that ship as well, it was a Caribbean cruise. That ship as well had nurses who graduated in 1993. Dominican nurses, and they were part of that crew. Lobby was part of that crew. I saw my good friend, Mr. Rodney, young Rodney he lives in Canada. He didn't want to go back. I think it's Eddie. He didn't want to go back on the ship as well. They were here as well on that cruise. And so there are a lot of Caribbean people on that cruise. But the concern that people have is access to Dominica and what we have. And let me, before I go to Mr. Linton, Dr. Fontaine, I'm going to give you a question to answer when you wind up. And the question is, does anyone know how many passports Hayden has sold already? Who's checking the balance on his and him repaying himself for passports?
It's a quick intervention. Lennox, Brian Hamilton is saying, nice program, and I'm listening. So Dominicans are locked in tonight and they're enjoying the program.
Yeah, Brian Hamilton, my former captain.
Yes.
Under 19 captain. Yes, yeah. Brian, big up to you, my brother. Mr. Linton.
In the 1990s, I worked in Dominica. I had a job in Dominica, and I also had a responsibility. The job in Dominica gave me a responsibility in Barbados as well. I worked for Colgate Palmolive between 1995 and 2001. And I was running human resources for the Dominica operation and a powder detergent plant that we had in Barbados. So I was working 3 days in Dominica and 2 days in Barbados. So leaving Dominica every Thursday morning and going to Barbados, working there Thursday and Friday, and coming back home on Saturday. Every week like clockwork. I would take Nature Island Airways from Canefield Airport. Arrive in Barbados at 7 o'clock. Take my car in the parking lot, drive to the work location, and get there before the Bajans who slept there the night before. And it worked. Today, that simply cannot happen. Right? We have all sorts of air traffic constraints and difficulties with movement between the islands and so on. So I say that to say that in many ways we have regressed, right? Back in those days, Dominicans were able to say, well, boy, I think I'm going to apply for a job over there. And I'm working here, but I'm going to use the experience I have here to apply for a job over there. In this time, it is so tight, you can't move, right? And the job market is not growing, it's not expanding. We have a lot of money, but the job market is not growing. And as Dr. Fontaine will tell you, it is not rocket science. With all the money we have collected from citizenship sales, growing the economy and putting Dominicans to work, which is the most important responsibility facing us, is not difficult. We have over 100 people in Venezuela. They're representing Dominica in sports, athletics. They were promised a little stipend, they can't get it.
Even if I get gold in dominoes.
Huh?
You got a gold medal in dominoes.
You got a gold in dominoes.
Congrats.
Yeah, I mean, hello. What is that? We talk about our people underperforming in sports and so on. All of these are direct results of poor governance, lack of interest of the people in government in the things that matter to people. They're only interested in what matters to them. And if you notice, they're excelling in that. They're excelling in the accumulation of assets that cannot be explained by their legal income. And they're excelling in holding Dominica's resources unconstitutionally and unlawfully overseas, doing what they want with it, while the people of Dominica suffer. That is why the 31st of May, for all the people who are asking what is the opposition is doing, get yourself ready to show the government that you do not approve of what is happening. And you've had enough. You've had enough of this reckless mismanagement of Dominica, this disrespect for people, this treating of Dominicans as second class in their own country. You will have no more of it. And you're prepared to stand and say, we are reclaiming our electoral process. It belongs to us, and no more is it going to be used by any political party to rig elections and to prevent our votes of conscience from deciding who the government will be.
Thank you.
Plain and straight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Linton. Before I go to Dr. Fontaine, somebody said that Mr. Linton asked Dr. Fontaine the question about if you have $4.5 million, billion dollars, what you would have done with it. And the person said I cut through. I never realized I cut through. So Mr. Fontaine, before you leave, can you please
I'm going to suggest to you to call back Dr. Fontaine next week. Give him time to deal with it.
Yeah, because I was
because it's become a big joke now, you know.
Yeah.
We are the laughing stock of the world. And people are asking us, well, what are you going to do? Okay, Dr. Fontaine, spend some time.
Yeah.
Show them what the United Workers Party will do with $4.2 billion and all this thing about debt to GDP and so on and so on.
Right. We can make it make sense. Right. I just want to apologize to the caller. I never realized I cut through. I think it was innocently done when you asked a question and maybe I made a point. But the thing about it, we have been saying that over and over and over. And Dr. Fontaine, next week, you're coming back right here and we're going to discuss that $4.5 billion, what a United Workers Party government would do with that money. So the caller, listen next week. And not to send a message to Matt. My number is 265-4334. You can message me directly. Thank you, Matt, for sending the message. Dr. Fontaine, your closing remarks.
Yes, I was just thinking of our young people. And I've been thinking about the young people quite a bit of late. And trying to imagine myself now in their shoes and trying to compare how the young people today must be thinking and feeling compared to how when we were in our youth. And I can't help but feel that when I was a young person in Dominica, that there was a lot of optimism, there was a lot of hope. I remember that when we left sixth form, there was only one guy who did not get a job within a 2 months of leaving school. Everybody else had gotten jobs. This gentleman eventually joined the police force. I remember him today. But I'm thinking now of the students who leave the college and who have nothing to look forward to, who have to go back under the parents' roofs, who cannot do anything to help the parents who've sacrificed and done so much for them. And it's really a painful thought, because when you think about it, you realize that it does not have to be that way. It did not have to be that way. That we were able, through the sale of passports, to make hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. And really, this money should have been used to the benefit of Dominica. It does not happen. And I think the young people of Dominica need to ask themselves a question. We see a lot of disinterest in what appears to be going on in Dominica. Young people seem to be not concerned, or it could be that they're just so, they're so bazudi, they're just so confused that they have almost given up. But that's where my thoughts are tonight. The young people of Dominica, and really, what are they expecting out of Dominica? And are they happy? Are they satisfied? As a young person who've gone to high school, are you satisfied that the best that you can do, that the best that your government can offer you is to strap on a red bag on your back and go and plant a couple of flower trees on the roadside? Is that enough? I mean, shouldn't you be demanding more out of your government? Shouldn't you be demanding more out of your country? So that's how I want to end tonight, just to kind of put that thought to the young people of Dominica. And to let them know that in the United Workers' Party, we have a deep concern for the young people, that our policies, our efforts would be aimed at providing sustainable jobs that they can go to, jobs that they can build their lives around, jobs that would be able to provide, that they would be able to provide and help the families, and so really, there is no comparison, quite frankly, between a United Workers' Party government and a Dominican Labour Party government. We've seen a Dominican Labour Party government that has focused on making a few individuals rich, a few foreigners, and building skyscrapers in foreign lands on our name. Making a mockery of buildings for Dominicans, and wondering where the millions have gone to, compared to a United Workers' Party government that would be concerned about the welfare of the people, that would develop agriculture, develop the manufacturing sector, and really make Dominica one of the best places to live, work, and to enjoy life, as our former leader, or Lennox Linton, our president, is fond of saying. And that is what we are committed to, Sparks. We are committed to, ensuring that the future of this country, which our young people get opportunities and that they can live decent lives. And I think we owe it to them. I believe that we are well within our powers to do it. And what we need really is for these same young people to take a second look at the United Workers' Party, for a while, disengage themselves from the zero mentality and think soberly, think seriously about life and what it is that they want out of life, and give our party another look, because we are deeply concerned about them. We are deeply concerned about the future of this country, and we are committed to working towards developing this country and having a country where we can all be happy and proud of.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thompson Fontaine, for your contribution. Don't forget, we're going to be here next week, Thursday. Right here to continue the discussion on what you would do with that type of resources that we have out there from our passports. Thank you, Mr. Danny Loge from Rosenhoff, our president, Mr. Linton. Those of you who called in and make a contribution, those of you following on Facebook, on Q95 FM radio, thank you for joining us. this evening. Don't forget to join us tomorrow for a raffle on the weekend. Mayfest in Marigot on Sunday. Achievement Day in Grand Fond. No, Achievement Day in Grand Fond. Just join us as well. I just want to wish each and every one of you a happy weekend. Don't, as I always say, find a place of worship on the weekend, because you have to thank God for seeing you through this week, and you want to thank Him as well, or ask Him for guidance, give you guidance into the new week. So have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. It's a very active holiday weekend, May Day weekend. Don't drink and drive. Be safe along the route. SORS will have action at 767. You have action in Purple in Carbridge, all over the place have activities. Those of you driving, don't drink and drive. If you're driving, if you're drinking, get a designated driver. Please stay safe. Don't speed. We have got a road for speeding. Too many accidents on this holiday weekend. Just want to wish each and every one of you very best for the weekend. God bless you and have a wonderful weekend.
El disco realmente nació como un regalo.
Recording this album came out of thinking about what we could give Grandma for her 80th birthday.
Little did they know that this novel family gift would launch the octogenarian's professional career in the music industry.
Se llama Clayton, güela.
Hola, ¿cómo están? Doña Irma, ¿cómo está? It's very nice to meet you. I called up Jorge and Irma on Zoom at the family's ranch in a little town called General Terán, nestled in the citrus-growing region of Nuevo León, Mexico. The town is known as the birthplace of norteño music, but we'll get to that in a bit.
Platíquele de La Pajarera, güela.
Grandma, tell Clayton about the song La Pajarera. La Pajarera is a song they taught you at school, right?
Yes, my teachers would teach us that song when I was very young. I must have been 7 or so.
La Pajarera, or the Birdcatcher, is a song that speaks on wild birds being caught, trapped, and later sold in the big city. Ironically, it is the song that took off and went viral in the Facebook video. It is also a fitting metaphor to Irma's own life, having her wings clipped before she even learned to fly. Her childhood desire to sing was quickly subdued by her father.
My father didn't like the idea of me singing, neither did my brothers. I think they were very jealous because there were these other girls in the neighborhood who sang, and their father would take them to school and give them singing lessons. My dad looked down on that, and because he didn't approve of them, I knew there was no way he would let me sing too.
Irma's formal education would also come to an abrupt halt.